Welcome to the Safe Life family. We're the safety guys. I'm Landon.
And I'm Kevin.
And we're excited you're joining us on the journey from Safety 101 to safety experts. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Safe Life family.
Yeah, it's awesome to be here with you.
Today, we've got somewhat of a specialty episode where we're going to discuss ways to help teenagers be safe. I know that teenagers have not always positive stereotypes around some of their behaviors, and maybe they just get a bad rep. But there's a few things that can be really beneficial when it comes to how to parent a teenager and if you're a teenager, how to be safe. So we're going to go in depth on a couple of those things and hope to help alleviate some of those stresses that comes from parenting teenagers.
Yeah. Let me ask you the first question. What bugged you about our parenting style when we raised you to keep you safe?
The challenge with that question is I don't have much to compare it to. Maybe if I go back in time and relive a different teenage years, then I could answer that better. But I know that I didn't love always having to say where I was going. I wanted to be a free spirit and do what I wanted. I didn't want to have to check in, or curfews were lame.
Yeah,
that's teenage Landon speaking now. But I think that's probably one of the hardest things about growing up in our family was that kind of now, of course, I know it's the buddy system and having that, but that was tough. Always reporting, always having to know where we're at, being home at a certain time, and that accountability, I think, was the worst part.
Okay. And times have changed so much that when I was growing up with my father, he had a dad that was really, really strict with him back in the wagon wheel days.
Oh, really?
And he had to just, measure up to everything. So when he had us, he just basically said, you can do anything you want until you get into trouble and your life was over. And we believed him. So we didn't have curfews, and we grew up in the Denver area. Nowadays, there would be no way I would even dare to do that with kids. Even if you trust them, it's not so much them, but there's just what else is surrounding them to get them into trouble and hurt them, cause a lot of harm.
And I know you've shared that in some ways that wasn't a problem for you because you didn't have that desire to go cause trouble or get into any of those situations.
I was scared to death too.
But nowadays, how teenagers, I think, feel those same, maybe it's rebellious, maybe it's just independence. All of those things can work together to potentially create some situations that can be challenging for safety.
Yeah. What we did is a little bit like all the things we did with you guys is, let's just say your teenager, if you get them a car that even runs, they're going to see how fast it goes. And of course, as police officers, we get to see a lot of crashes that is just horrible. So we always had the rule that if you decided you wanted to go fast, just come and ask us. Of course, we had friends with fast cars, and your dad would ride with you. And I remember one time riding with you in a fast car, and you got up to where that automatic transmission was peeling out at 15 miles an hour. And you're like, okay, that's all I need to do. But so many times the parents don't even know that they're out going way too fast. And then, of course, then the tragic accidents or crashes happen, and it's really a sad deal. Another one is we talked a little bit about the safety word, but there's also, if you can create your own hand signals with your parents to, one that's out on the internet right now is you put your hand down like you're having the number 4 up, and then you bring it down over your thumb. And a lot of people, if they know that that's a safety signal, but if you had your own one in your own family, a really fun story I had, I won't have time to share it, but they promised each other. Now today it's quite a common thing, but a fist bump. And the dad always said, if you guys are in trouble or something, just hold your fist out and go to fist bump me, and I'll know that that's trouble. And it ended up that they had a chance to use it, and the dad, he felt like he rescued one of his kids from a really bad situation of a controlling and abusive spouse.
Wow,
So,
that's huge. And I can see in a maybe at work or in a professional setting, a fist bump isn't a very uncommon thing.
right.
So I can see how that would work well. But if you have that, I mean, that's not a common thing we do around the house.
No, not in ours. We'll do a
Right.
hug.
Yeah.
But so it just kind of says, okay, what's going on? And you're welcome right then and there to confront the situation and say, what's up? But his father just knew that he had to do it more stealthy, and he followed through, and it worked out real well for his child, his grown-up child.
A lot of that is a challenge too, because it requires a lot of preparation and communication and frankly, relationship. I think a lot of those things are key. And sometimes teenagers can make decisions that may strain that relationship. So I think as a
Mhm.
parent, having the patience to say, okay, I do love my child and I want them to be successful and happy. So let's set some of these ground rules. And maybe it's talking about it when they're earlier, or, before they get involved in some of those activities.
Yeah, way before. That's such wisdom. Oh my goodness, I don't know which story to share on that one, but maybe my favorite one, and luckily it happened to me when I was a young father. But this, I had an incident that I had to go undercover and try to catch a drug deal going down. And during this time, it was winter, and it was in a big parking lot, and we noticed this really nice little Ford truck just coming through the parking lot doing what we call in cookies. Sometimes it's called donuts, and they're having fun, just two kids, and they me and my partner's like, do we tell them to get out of here? And they're like, no, we can't break our cover. So we decided I'll let them just do cookies. Well, what ended up happening,
I wish that's what happened with all of those situations.
yeah, wouldn't that be fun? But they kept getting their speed up, and there was light poles, and he missed a light pole going probably 30 miles an hour, luckily, as he was out of control. So we said, now we've got to try to protect him. So when we pulled up, I happened to know him kind of on the side of town that we lived on. And so I looked at my partner. I said, conflict of interest right off the bat. So he took over, and we smelled the odor of alcohol in the car. And anyway, I just felt terrible for the kid. Went through some steps, and finally got him in the police car. And I hope a lot of kids don't watch this, but our favorite question who do you want us to call, mom or dad? Well, if they said dad, of course, we're going to call mom. If they say mom, we're going to call dad. We want the best, strictest judge in the world to take care of this problem before it gets out of control.
That's a mean trick.
Yeah. But anyway, he says, my mom, you just cannot call my dad no matter what. So I called the dad, and we're used to, in these circumstances, either the parents coming just crazy out of control, either wanting to thump us or thump the kid, or just you can't even talk to them, or they come down just a scowl, and they're gonna just kill this kid when he gets home.
Let them have it.
But anyway, something so remarkable happened that just set the tone for hopefully the way I fathered with you guys, our children. But he came, the kid seen his father come, and he just started to cry. And dad came up to me as calm, and he said, officer, would you mind if I talk to my kid? And he didn't recognize me right off the bat because I worked with his kid in school a little bit more. But anyway, I said, sure. But I was ready to either grab him off the kid or wait for him to punch me, because I'm, picking on the teenage boy that's the perfect kid. And anyway, the boy, when we opened the door, his head was down. He was still crying. And the dad was as calm. And he said, son, do you know what we have to do tomorrow? And the boy, instead of even saying anything, he nodded his head. And then the dad said, and you do know I love you. And then he said, yes, Dad, I know. And the dad walked away, and I was going, holy mackerel, I have never seen anything in the world like that on such a pretty serious, problem for that child. So anyway, During the booking process, I couldn't take it anymore. I got him off to the side of the corner and I said, you know what? I've got 4 little kids. I want to do that if my kids mess up. I said, what in the world is the trick to being a father like that? And he said, well, with that truck, before he got it, I guess the father sat down with him and said, okay, these are the rules. If you speed, this is the consequence. If you drink and I mean, you wouldn't think you'd have to say, okay, Landon, if you get out and get drunk or do drugs, this is the consequence. But he covered everything.
Mm.
And what happened with that is if he ever got caught drinking and driving in that brand new truck that he saved up half of the money for, so he had some ownership in that vehicle. What ended up happening was that he would have to sell the truck because the insurance he had some good reasons. Insurance would go crazy, and then he'd have to ride the school bus in a high school situation, and the high schoolers know that's not so good sometimes. But anyway, he did it. The kid did it the next day, and to this day, I run into him off and on, and he's a remarkable young man today. He learned such a lesson that no yelling, no hitting, no screaming, no out of control. It was just all set before the event happened that everyone knew. I mean, you could go home instead of yelling, you just, well, see you in the morning, son. Love you.
Mm.
So it set. I wish everybody could have an experience like that when they just start out in parenthood and understand how important it is to have that kind of demeanor on such a yucky situation.
And I have a wonderful toddler who is very rambunctious and energetic and independent and it causes mayhem in a lot of different ways. And I almost wish I had that same level of restraint in those situations versus, feeling like I need to stomp my feet and raise my voice. But is that in that kind of a situation, are there more times that you think it's important for parents to pause and, maybe make sure that feelings are shared and there's love experienced? Is that, if the police call, is that the only time you need to worry about that kind of a situation?
No, any parent knows this, that one of the teenagers, one of them that you're raising is going to come home and there's going to be an issue at midnight. And I've always counseled to say, okay, you can talk briefly and say, look, I don't want to really talk about it tonight. You need your rest. I need my rest. We'll look at this tomorrow, but I want to tell you, and this is important because I had a situation where the kid didn't see a way out, and so he ended his life that evening. But
Oh no.
you need to tell him whatever it is, we can work through it. Yeah, there'll be consequences, but if you talk through it before, they know it's coming, but they know that they've done it before. And you tell them, you got to try to express the best way you can how much you love them. And just, let's go to sleep and get some rest and have a good breakfast in the morning. If tomorrow's the morning you want to talk about it. And it just, all of the frustration after you fall asleep, because I'm telling you, you don't fall asleep right away. Even when you tell them, you or the child probably stays up half the night, but it just makes it so much better. You don't do it out of anger. You don't do anything with your family out of anger. It never works well.
That's huge. I mean, I know there were definitely nights where you were disappointed in the decisions that I made, but now that thinking about that, there wasn't often where we would stay up and talk about it. I knew I was in trouble, but to have that, no matter what, we love you. We're going to work through this. Let's talk more tomorrow.
Yeah,
I think we've all been in that emotionally charged situation with a lack of sleep, and our
doesn't help, does it?
yeah, our communication levels are not very good in that kind of situation. But that's wow, what what a scenario to think about. On that note, any other tips you think that our parents should know about as far as how to help make sure teens are safe?
One that I learned from the police program that I was involved in, we had a youth group that was wanting to help. It was the mayor's youth council. Our mayor at the time put it all together, and they would help us on different projects. And I was helping a group, probably about 15. We had about half boys and half girls, all high school age. And for some reason, the girls started to talk about how some of the boys in high school was a little bit aggressive on dates. And then some of them started to cry, and I was like, "Are you guys okay?" And anyway, I asked that whole group of girls if they could just stay after just for a second to see if there was anything I could do to help. But come to find out, they were abused on a few dates. And I said, and I knew one of their dads, and he was like the Guido that would have taken care of the problem and then went to the police and said, "Put me in jail for the rest of my life."
Oh, yikes.
And I said, "What in the world did your dad do?" Excuse me. And she just looked at me and cried a little bit more and said, "I can't tell my dad." And the other girl said, "Yeah, you don't understand. You don't tell your dads that." And I'm going, "What in the world is going on?" And so finally, after talking to him about another half an hour, they said if they told their fathers of what happened, all those years of the father telling them that they're their little princess, the love of their life, just loving them the way hopefully all fathers will love their daughters, that they couldn't look at them in the same light. That
Man.
somehow their 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 personal private self was just tarnished to the point that the father couldn't see him as that anymore. So they wouldn't tell. So one of the things that your mom and I did, Pam and I did, is if it's the girls coming home from a date, the mom would wait up for them. Those girls said, "Yeah, if my mother would have asked me the night that it happened, I would have told my mom, would have promised the mom not to tell the dad."
Right.
But that's why a lot of times I would wait up for you boys when you'd come home. And that also helps. Like if they decide to, drink some alcohol or do anything else, they know someone's waiting up when they come home. They're not sleeping. And then you have to, "Oh, I'm home, Dad." And blah, 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 blah. They're, and to be honest, we slept on the couch a lot waiting for you to come home. But if we could see the lights or something, boy, we were right up and just smiling.
Oh, that was your secret.
Because it'll wear you out with if you have a handful of children at home. But anyway, have the moms just ask specifically. And then maybe the last thing I could say is when you do your education with your kids, the danger stranger thing we talked about earlier, at a certain age, we never allowed sleepovers. We told your kids, I mean, you can have the party till midnight or whatever. We'll supply you. We'll have a great time, but I need to protect you as a father when that happens. And we just didn't like those sleepovers because so many times it's actually somebody that it's not the stranger danger, but it's somebody that that will try to start to groom the child, and then the abuse will start. And of course, they'll tell the children horrible things if they say what they'll do. And so you need to really think about this in your family if you want to have sleepovers. And so many stories I could relate to that moms and dads said no sleepovers, and the kids would just beg and beg and beg. And the third time that the beg and beg and they let them do it, there was an incident that just, they're going to have to live with. And it tarnished several years of a whole family's life, ruined friendships, and because they knew the abuser. So when your kids are out and about, out to something, always just say, "Anything scared you today?" When you're over to Johnny's playing or Sarah's playing, you just have to communicate when they get home. And that's maybe it for our time tonight.
Okay. Well, on that note, what do you think our most important takeaways are outside of build a relationship, make sure you're communicating ahead of time, prepare ahead of time? What else am I missing?
I would just say, try not to do anything in anger with the people you love. That might be the words of wisdom tonight, too.
Oh, that's the safety man
We can do both.
wisdom. Yeah,
We
that
can do
works.
both tonight on that one, but it just never works. And takes a pretty healthy individual mentally to forgive when people just yelling at you. And little kids can do it within minutes, but when you get in a teenage thing, boy, it's hard. And adults are sometimes even harder. It takes like I said, a very healthy mental individual to just brush that off and say, they did that out of anger. They still love me. So don't try not to do anything out of hatred with the people you love.
Share love, and then discuss consequences the next day. There's a lot of wisdom in that. Well, thank you. And I know today we talked about maybe some more sensitive issues. And for anyone who hasn't had the or excuse me, anyone who's been in those situations, we're so sorry. I can't imagine what we've had to go through, and frankly, it's just completely unacceptable if you've been the victim in any of those situations. So our heart goes out to you, and we're so sorry. But we'll do our best to try and help future generations to be as safe as we can. So on that note, have a wonderful day.
Here's my hand signal today.
Peace. If you feel like we helped guide you in your journey to a safer life or home,
Or if you just think we're awesome.
please follow us for more. After all, who doesn't like a thumbs up or a subscribe?